Settle down, class. Been hearing from your TAs that some of you have not been attending discussion sections. And I would like to remind you that participation is 20% of your grade. But anyway, today's lecture is entitled AntiPapa John Paul II, Give Us This Day Our Daily Breadsticks and Deliver Us from Giorno. I'm going to break with the formula a bit this week and mainly delve into just a biography of a man who would become very seminal to the church. The man who would become AntiPapa John Paul II was born as he was raised by squirrels. At the moment of his birth, in the suburbs of Flavortown, prophets declared him a child of destiny, or perhaps density. The manuscript is poorly written. At the age of 3, he invented the bar stool. At 4, the Franklin stove. At 9, he invented a primitive version of the blockchain, made with wooden blocks and actual chains. He would later describe it as his greatest mistake. His teachers have also described him as, quote, pretty good at Spanish. His first spiritual experience with the divine occurred at age 12, when he saw a piece of cheese that looked a lot like another piece of cheese he had seen the previous day. He concluded that this must be the work of God, or perhaps other God, the God nobody really likes to talk about. He experienced several other revelations in his youth, most notably from Philip K. Dick, who traveled back in time and claimed that the whole world was run by a computer in space. Having no conception of computers nor space, he rejected this hypothesis whole cloth. He decided to join the clergy because, hey, what else is a kid with visions going to do? In college, he adopted the name Rick, because it is a much better name. His big break came in AD 1724, AD of course being Anno Dominos, when he answered an ad in a tabloid from a Wegmans looking for bishops. He lied on LinkedIn to get the job, but it worked. Soon he was known as Bishop Rick of the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies. With the upheavals in the reign of Papa John Paul I, which we covered last lecture, Bishop Rick and his bishopric saw great opportunities for advancement. He had run a few successful bake sales to raise funds for local tsunami relief, and decided to expand this practice. Well, it turns out, bake sales for God is considered indulgences or some shit, so he got shipped off to the Cayman Islands on charges of assholery. It was there that he encountered his greatest vision. Little Caesar himself came to him in a dream and told him, "Sub hoc rodento vinces," which we all know is Latin for "under this road you will conquer." After that, he was pretty much off to the races. He made a name for himself at the Diet of Gummy Worms.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Where he argued vehemently against the inclusion of pinball machines in pizzerias. This was a whole political thing at the time. So he sat there, outside St. Pizza's Basilica, seeing only the black smoke of burnt pizzas, indicating that they had not yet found the Papa, and eventually, that mozzarella white smoke came for Papa John Paul II. Rick was devastated. He had a very poor understanding of how the whole process worked, and thought for some reason that he deserved to be the Papa. And so, it was at that moment that he resolved to fight Papa John II at a volcano. Anyway, Vatican II happened. At last lecture, we talked about how Vatican II established a Second Vatican as a tax dodge. And so, Rick knew that the Papa was looking for someone to run this tax dodge. And what better place than the Cayman Islands? After a few wheelings and dealings on LinkedIn, he got himself put in charge of Vatican II, the legend of Curly's fries. Well, times got tough. There was some sort of world war or something that the church really doesn't want to talk about. And anti-JP2 decided to make his play, and what a play it was. The financial collapse following the pepperoni crisis decimated the church's finances. We have lots of supplemental materials about that in there. Bishop Rick, now commonly referred to as AntiPapa John Paul II, immediately began issuing pizza bowls. The most famous of which was De Rerum Fistfightatis, or On the Nature of Fistfights, in which he decreed that the entire legitimacy of the church was dependent on Papa John Paul II fist-fighting him on a volcano. Now, this, of course, was the largest geopolitical split in the church since the schism between famous rays and famous original rays, and naturally, war was declared. The forces of Pasta and Antipasta met on the fields of, I don't know, let's say the Somme to make it dramatic. Being a big fan of Star Wars Episode 3, Papa John Paul II agreed to fight Anti-Papa John Paul II on a volcano, as long as the duel was appropriately scored. So once an orchestra was acquired, the duel commenced. I invite you to imagine all sorts of highfalutin special effects and dramatic action, much like in the recent hit film The Northman. And I also, once you have done all that, please imagine that all participants involved were dead on a field of lava. Pretty cool, huh? Now, in order to fully assess the historical ramifications of AntiPapa John Paul II, we need to critically examine the next few centuries. Had it not been for AntiPapa John Paul II, could we say that Galileo would have been able to conduct his experiments at the Leaning Tower of Pisa and establish that the tiny table, not the crust, was the center of the pizza? Could Joseph Splinter have been able to take his sect of Ninja Turtles out to Utah? Would the concept of eating anchovy pizzas on Friday even be a thing? I think not. And indeed, it is conceivable that the rise of the Swedish fish empire would not have occurred were it not for the Antipapa's desperate efforts. And that will be the topic of next week's lecture. Please read pages 400 to 443 in Miller. I will see you next week. Thank you. Woo!